Today in DFW, 4 out of 5 homes aren't selling each month. New listings keep hitting the market, but the closed sales just aren't keeping up. With that sort of imbalance, you would think the inventory would be growing, and it did a lot this year, but right now, inventory is falling. And it's not because more homes are selling, it's because sellers are giving up or their listings are just failing. Over 10,000 homeowners over the last 3 months have pulled their listings from the market after months of stress, price cuts, and silence. And the shocking part is, a lot of these failures were avoidable. If your home has been sitting on the market for way too long, or you're nervous about listing your house soon, this video is for you. Today I'm breaking down the top 3 things that you must do if you want to be one of the listings that sells versus one of the one who quits or fails. The 3 things you need to fix, they sound simple, but I think we can all agree simple is not easy. Because the first one is your mindset. The second one is your research. And the third one is your marketing. Now, obviously, your realtor has a lot to do with your marketing, but you are ultimately in control. And as we go through this and we get to the marketing part, if your realtor isn't doing these things, or if they are doing these bad things I point out, you need a new realtor. Easy, right? If it were that easy, DFW wouldn't be hitting a record high in failed listings over the last couple months. Let me show you what I mean. Over the last year, we have seen failed listings continue to grow month over month and year over year. In fact, the yellow line here is showing your year over year percentage, and that didn't dip below 10% except for this 1 month right here. Every other month of the year, it has been at least a double-digit growth in failed listings, to the point where in October, we hit just over 4,500 failed listings on a 90-day moving average. And here's the thing. These aren't bad homes. They're not run down. They're not hopeless cases. They're good homes that you're going to look at online and think, why didn't these sell? They were unfortunately homeowners who weren't guided correctly and fell into these 3 traps I'm about to outline. So let me walk you through the 3 things that'll make the difference between a home that fails and a home that sells. So the first thing you have to understand and really let sink in is that a lot of these homes aren't selling because the homes are bad. They're failing because the market has changed, but the strategies have not. The first thing you have to fix, like I said earlier, is your mindset. Most sellers are still trying to sell in 2021 conditions. They think that if they come on the market, they're going to have fast showings, instant interest, and possibly even multiple offers. But in today's market, which has shifted to a buyer's market, almost the opposite is true. In fact, if you want to watch one of my latest market updates where I go over those stats in a lot more detail, you can check that out right here. But as a quick summary, buyers right now have more options, they have more leverage, and because of that, they're moving slower and they expect more value. So the 2 main mindset shifts that you have to make as a seller with this information is 1, this is not your home anymore. This is a product. You are now a caretaker for the buyer's home. Now, I know that, obviously you still own the home and you're living there, but you really need to make this mindset shift because I know this is hard. There's a lot of emotions tied up in selling a home. This has been a place you've made memories and lived in for the last, who knows, maybe a decade or 2. However, when you let all of those emotions guide your decisions, a lot of times you're going to make some bad decisions that buyers just will not agree with. So the first mindset shift is this is a product, not your home. You need to package it and think about it that way. That's going to make all the rest of these decisions we're going to go through or changes a lot easier. The second mindset shift that you must make that I was just alluding to is that the market is in control. I know that you put a lot of effort and time into your home, that you love it and that you have memories here, but arguing with market data or market feedback, which is an important one, is counterproductive to what you're actually trying to do. Now, how does the market give you feedback? Well, 1 is your number of showings. If you list your house and you have 0 showings for the first 7 to 10 days, something needs to change. We're going to go through and talk about what that might be here in a second, but you need to change something. It's not, whatever you're doing isn't working. Or the level 2 here is you have some showings but no offers. Or even worse, you have a lot of showings and no offers. Now, luckily, every time you move up that ladder here, you're getting closer and closer to hitting the nail on the head. Once you start getting some offers, even if they're lowball, you're getting closer. So again, the market is going to give you feedback and you need to respond to that. Treat it as feedback, not as criticism. A lot of people, a lot of times, if they don't make that mindset shift number 1, and this is their home and not a product, they take a lot of that feedback personally. And while I get it, trust me, some feedback can be a little harsh. You need to treat it, again, like critique on a product. What can you improve about the product to get the desired result you're looking for? I have an example here of a seller who was chasing the market. This is what we call this, is when a seller isn't adjusting quick enough. And this is what it could look like. So when you look here, they started at $560,000. And after 55 days, they moved to 550, and then 540, and then 535. And what you see is this gap is getting shorter and shorter between the days. Well, some of them, this is 70 days right here. But you go all the way up to 546 days. That is almost 2 full years. They started at $560,000 and sold at $377,000 roughly. That's a big difference. That is almost a $200,000 price drop. All because they didn't have the right mindset. Now, I'm sure there's some other issues there we'll get into here, but this is what it could look like. When I see price drops like this, well, one, you waited way too long. 55 days is way too long. Also, the 10,000 is a big number, I get it, but it is not a significant price drop in the buyer's eyes. So price drop strategy is outside the realm of this video, but if you want to see a video about that and why certain prices work better than others, drop a comment below. So the fix number 2 is you need to fix your research. So you need to know your competition. And I kind of touched on this briefly in the last mindset section, but your realtor and you, because you can get on Zillow or Realtor.com just like they can, but y'all need to be discussing your competition, possibly going out to see and look at them. Do a showing if you need to. You really need to be objective. So if you accomplished mindset shift number 1 and you're looking at this like a product, well, now go view the products you're competing against. How are they packaged? What do they look like? Are they staged? What do the finishes in the house look like? You need to know how you stack up. So I have an example here of what this looks like. And then stick with me, I'll tell you exactly what you're looking for here. So first up, what you're seeing here is the subject at $525,000 was their original list price. Now look at this. You got the old wallpaper, the cabinets aren't terrible, but they're basic. Obviously, this has not been updated in a long time. Trust me, the rest of the house looks just like this. And here's what they were competing against when they listed. $497,000, so lower, and obviously a nicer upgraded kitchen. $549,000, so higher, but obviously a much more upgraded. And trust me, this house was upgraded all the way throughout. $500,000, so less expensive, but you can see, other than this fridge, but a little bit more upgraded here. $550,000, and then $550,000, but all these are upgraded. So what you're seeing here is they didn't do enough market research. If you knew that this house and this house were competing against you, you should never have listed over $500,000. So obviously, if this seller had been guided through the proper way to do this research, and they knew obviously what their competition was doing, what it looked like, how it was staged, this price would have seemed ridiculous. And to prove it, this is what happened. So the result of this, the house on top was the one that you saw, was the subject. They were on the market for 452 days, started at $525 and ended at $415. Now, a lot of these other houses had some more success. 3 days on market, $500,000, and they ended at $490. That's a pretty good deal. On the market 2 days, $550. They actually sold at $572.5. If I go back, that's this one right here. People paid more for it than they were asking. That does happen when you package a house properly and you know what you're doing. So anyway, going to look at all this, most of these finished a little bit lower than they started, but obviously the biggest price drop and the longest time on market was for the person who was competing incorrectly. They didn't know what they had and they overpriced from the beginning. And while I don't have all the price drops they went through, trust me, there was plenty of them here. So what are you looking for when you are looking at your competition? And what does your competition really mean? So very quickly, your competition is any other house that a buyer would reasonably consider along with yours. Now, I had an appraiser break this down for me once, but if you can narrow it down to your neighborhood, great. But buyers don't shop that way. Yeah, they might be looking in a certain area, but it's very rarely a single neighborhood. So you need to look at what's around you. Other neighborhoods nearby, maybe somewhere in the same school district possibly. You got to know what buyers in your area are looking for in your house. Then you need to narrow it down by size. Bedroom and bathroom count are good, square footage is better, similar ages, but no, don't go just by the age of the house. What we're looking for is what a lot of people call functional age, meaning has that house been remodeled recently? Because a house that's been flipped, and like we saw at that other one, the one that listed 550 and sold at 572, well, yes, the bones of the house might have been built in the 1980s, but it functionally was a brand new house. Now I get it, there's wiring and plumbing and all sorts of things that are still older in there, I get it. But you need to be comparing apples to apples. Have you recently remodeled? Is your house, you've done some upgrades, but not all of them or whatever? You need to know these things. You need to know what kind of homes are getting the top of the market near you. So if a house like this, we look at this and we say, well, this one sold for 572, I would dive into this and say, what do they do? What does it look like? Which rooms did they upgrade? What do the comps say and where did they price the house from the beginning? Do they do open houses? Like, again, know your competition. So I would say narrow this down to the best 5 to 10 listings. And you want, again, run a range. What do the top homes look like? What do the middle homes look like? And what are the homes that have been sitting the longest and have done a bunch of price drops? What are they doing? And then compare yours objectively. This is where your realtor can help. Y'all can do showings. You can go look at them. Attend those open houses near you. These are all things that a seller should be proactively doing to really understand what's going on. Now, again, your real estate agent should be doing a lot of this too. They should be guiding you through this process, and they should be helping you understand what you're competing with in your market. If they're not, that's a huge red flag. In fact, if a realtor shows up and only has comps for you that are closed, that have already succeeded, that's a big red flag that is not the right realtor for this market. Because you can't price in today's market based on what has already succeeded 1 or 2 months ago. That can be helpful, but buyers aren't looking at that. So you need to know your competition, because once you know your competition, you can use that information to become the obvious choice. Which leads me into the third fix. The third fix is your marketing. Now, your realtor has a lot to do with this, but you as the seller, you are hiring this realtor. You need to look and watch what they are doing. Are they doing what they promised you in their listing appointment? Are they posting on social media like they said they would? Are they doing walkthrough videos like they said they would? How does the copy on the listing look? How do the photos look? Do they hire a professional or do they just walk around with their cell phone and take some pictures? You'd be surprised at how often things like this happen, unfortunately, where you hire someone because they were referred to you by someone else, and now all of a sudden you're stuck with an agent that doesn't really know what they're doing. In fact, if this makes you nervous at all, I have a video here on how to hire a real estate agent. Check that out. I'll walk you through some interview questions and a free guide on how to do that. So here are the obvious signs that your realtor is not doing a good job marketing, and you need to either hold their feet to the fire or just find a new realtor. The most obvious one is the dark cell phone pictures, but also blurry, vertical, or unaligned pictures. All those go into this. People need to fall in love with your house online first. And how do they do that? Pictures, video, and words. So the copy they're using in the MLS, on their website, all of that matters. Second thing, you need to stage your house. Now, does this mean you need to remove all your furniture and put a stager's furniture in there? No. But you need to be strategic about how you prepare your house for people to, A, to take pictures of it, but B, to come and see it. This matters. The decluttering matters more than ever. The cleaning matters more than ever. The fixes matter more than ever. You need to have this on point. So if you haven't gone through that yet, you need to take a hard look at what is in your house and how it's being presented. This might be a great opportunity to enlist friends or family that you trust and aren't just going to be mean, but to try to come and take a walk through your house as a buyer, or get someone to help you, or hire a stager professionally that can actually do this. Third main thing I'm going to touch on right now is hard to schedule showings. Your house needs to be available when the buyers want to see it. I get it. Maybe you work from home. Maybe you have kids that are in homeschool, family situations, pets. I understand. However, more often than not, when a buyer requests to come see your home and you deny that or propose a new time, the buyer walks. I've seen it happen way too often, and it's frustrating. You're thinking, if you like the home, why can't you just adjust a little bit? Because the buyer is busy too, and having to go through their realtor to schedule the showing and come back and back and forth, It's exhausting sometimes. As a buyer's agent too, when that happens, I try to encourage my buyers to just seek out a time that does work for them, especially if this is a house they like. But right now, unfortunately, for sellers, buyers have a lot of choices. So if your product, like we talked about earlier, isn't on the shelf when they want to go see it, guess what happens? You miss out on a potential buyer. So you need to do everything you can to make sure your home is available. Now, I can keep going. Marketing is a big deal, but those are the big three. If you'd like to see a full video on what goes into actually marketing a property as a seller, hit me up in the comments. Let me know, and I will make that full video for you too. What I want to do now is actually show you, though, that this does work. Now, we saw earlier in that example, 3 days on market for that house, and it sold $22,000 over its list price. Here's one of my listings from this year as well. Now, what you can see here is obviously we staged. This was a full remodel that I had control over with my client, but they gave me the full reins. And so I got to do the full remodel, guide the contractors, pick the colors mostly, and do everything that I thought would work. And what happened was the result you see here. We remodeled almost every room in the house, cleaned it up, staged it, presented well. And here's the trick is when I ran the comps and I was looking at our competition, we probably could have priced this home at $325. $300 is what the comps were kind of screaming at me when I looked at my active competition. But I talked to the seller and we did what is called event pricing, meaning you want buyers to think this is such a good deal, I have to go see it. And so our original list price was $275. Now, to a lot of sellers, that's crazy. They're thinking, oh man, I'm going to leave so much money on the table. I won't have room to negotiate. And trust me, I've heard a lot of it. But when you do this, you create FOMO in a buyer. The pricing is your attractor. You are attracting them with the pictures and the whole 9 yards to get them in the house. Then they see the house and they start envisioning it as theirs. Have you ever been to a store and seen such a good deal? You grab it off the rack so no one else will take it, and then you walk around the store with it. And then towards the end, you might even be thinking, oh, I don't really need this. But you've been walking around the store with it and it feels like yours. This is the feeling we are trying to instill in a buyer touring the home. And so what this led to was over 70 showings over the first 3 days and 14 offers, 13 of which were above asking price. We settled with a buyer for $310,000, so $35,000 over our original list price. Now, are all the listings going to work this way? No. Is pricing your home in this manner right for everyone? No. It is dependent on your situation, which is so critical why you need to reach out and talk to someone. If you're in this situation and you've been thinking about selling, but you're nervous about the market, I'm encouraging you to reach out and give me a call. My information is in the description below. Text me, call me, email me, however you want to get a hold of me, you feel the most comfortable, reach out to me. I promise we'll have a very brief conversation about your situation. And if it makes sense, we'll schedule some time to meet in person. If not, hopefully the worst thing that happens is you leave there with a little bit more information and clarity and feel better about moving forward with your sale.